Hello everyone and welcome to a review of the 2016 Disney film Pete's Dragon, which is a remake of the 1977 classic. So here the film opens with a little family driving for a vacation in the mountains with their 4-year-old son Pete, who is sitting in the back reading a book. Everything seems fine until an animal rushes across the road and they are involved in a car accident with Pete's parents dead, and Pete is the only survivor, who then wanders off into the woods and is almost eaten up by these dangerous wolves. Out of nowhere, a mysterious creature, who is in fact a dragon, appears and takes Pete into his care. That's basically the very beginning of the movie, so without further ado, this is an honest review of the 2016 Disney film Pete's Dragon. Enjoy. So for 6 years, Pete has been living in the woods with his magical dragon friend Elliot, and he seems to really be enjoying it, as it's very magical and lots of fun. He doesn't seem to be sad about losing his parents, as he may be one of the bravest boys in the world, or at least in that concept. So meanwhile, in the fictional town of Millhaven, which is supposed to be set somewhere in the US state of Oregon, an old woodcarver named Mr. Meacham, who is played by Robert Redford, has been entertaining children for years with his stories about dragons like Elliot. But his daughter, Grace, who is a forest ranger played by Bryce Dallas Howard, doesn't believe the tales and thinks that he just makes them up to entertain children. When she goes out into the woods that day to do her forest ranger duties, Pete spies on her by hiding, and she somehow leaves behind her memory locket that Pete right here looks at. The next day, Pete discovers some lumberjack work going on. Gavin, who is the chief of this lumberjack team, is actually the main villain, but not evil. An 11-year-old girl, Natalie, who is played by the girl who was in the Matilda musical, spots Pete hiding up in the trees and chases after him to play with him. When she climbs up a tree to follow him, she accidentally falls, but Pete tries to save her even though she slips and falls down and only gets a very mild injury. When her dad and the other lumberjacks find her, they discover Pete. Grace mainly discovers him first, and she realizes that he's wearing the compass locket, and they all chase after him. And then Gavin, Jack's brother, another lumberjack, stops Pete, and then Elliot goes out to look out for Pete while Gavin and his sidekicks go out to hunt for Elliot. In the afternoon that day, Pete wakes up in the hospital. While he's watching the others outside speaking about what's happened to Pete, he escapes out the window, and sheriff officers as well as Grace go out to chase for him, but they have a bit of trouble catching him as he jumps onto a bus and is pretty good until he gets stuck in a dead-end alleyway and Grace catches him. No. Grace decides to bring Pete home for the night until they discover where he lives. He tries to escape once again, but Grace catches him. What does she want from him so badly? And why were the sheriffs treating him like he was a target? He's not a bad boy. He just is lost and confused, and he enjoyed living with Elliot and he just wants to go home. At night, Gavin and his sidekicks discover where Elliot lives and they become all terrified and drive back to town. Back at Grace's house, Pete and Natalie seem to be bonding quite well, and then Natalie sings Pete a song, which is pretty impressive, to be honest with.
Plant yourself downside the tallest tree. Measure the stars shining 1, 2, and 3. Look all around you and see. Deep in the forest there dragons will be.
Grace then comes up to Natalie's room and asks to have a few moments with Pete alone because she wants to talk to him about the locket and as well as his drawing that Natalie and Pete did together. After having a nice little chat, Pete then hugs Grace. I don't know why. Oh, I'm beginning to get a little bit emotionally distressed. When Gavin comes to Grace's house to tell Jack about how he saw the dragon, he's quite pissed off that they don't believe him. Well, Jack doesn't believe him at least. But the others in the house seem to believe Pete as well, When Grace goes to her dad's house later that night, she has a little chat with him about Pete and about the dragons in the woods. How he was there alone for 6 years, but he wasn't alone because he had Elliot. The next morning, Grace drives Pete and Natalie up into the woods along with Grace's father to see Elliot and so Pete can show them where he lives. At first they feel a little scared, but then they start to bond with him quite well and feel comfortable with him. I mean, after all, he's a friendly magical dragon. But then suddenly, Gavin and his sidekicks arrive and try to shoot Elliot with a tranquilizer so they can capture him because they think he's dangerous, which they succeed in doing, and it destroys Pete and Elliot's treehouse that they made, which is quite a shame because it was impressive. Screw you, Gavin. It's not your dragon, it's Pete's. It clearly says that in the goddamn title. So anyway, after that they take Elliot to the logging factory and everyone there is surprised to see that it's a dragon because they've never seen a dragon for real like that before. Pete, now covered in blankets, is traumatized and upset by this. Eventually, when Elliot regains consciousness, Pete and Natalie decide to set him free with the help of Mr. Meacham, the grandfather, who is Grace's dad. The sheriff department as well as Gavin's crew come after them and try to stop them. They try to block the road, but because the truck is broken, it just smashes through there. Elliot starts to fly again and breathes fire all over the bridge because he's scared that they're just gonna attack him. At the front, Grace and Jack are in the truck and they're in pretty high peril of falling off the bridge. Pete tries to calm Elliot down, telling him that he needs them even though they're not his real family, and sadly they fall to their deaths, including Elliot.
Come on, Elliot.
But fortunately, Elliot rescues them well and alive, much to everyone's joy. Elliot and Pete see helicopters coming towards the bridge. They escape, even though Grace tries to persuade Pete to stay. When they arrive back to the treehouse, they see that it's been destroyed and they realise they can't stay there anymore. Now that everyone knows of Elliot's existence, he will have to leave, but says that Pete will have to stay here even though he doesn't want to, and they say one last goodbye and he presumably persuades Pete to go and stay with the Meachams. When Grace and her family are driving back in the car, she starts crying again over Pete. But luckily for her, Pete returns to their house and she feels so happy. I'm starting to get emotionally distressed again. I don't get it why she wants him so badly. Well, what does she like so much about him? They're not even Pete's real family. Why do they already treat him like family? Does Pete in some way think that they're better than his real family? Anyway, Natalie and Jack seem very happy as well and they welcome Pete to the family and very soon they adopt him off screen. To be honest, Grace does seem like a nice person, but why did she treat Pete like family already? She just had too much with this. After that day, nobody from the town sees Elliot again and Mr. Meacham doesn't tell another tale. And he feels that he doesn't have to. Gavin, as well, moves on from the experience and gives up on Elliot's capture. And the Meachams have already adopted Pete as his new family, and one day they go on a vacation up to the mountains to find out where Elliot is now living with Pete's knowledge. They successfully find him, much to their joy, and that's about the end of the movie. I just got pretty emotionally distressed with this movie, which was my biggest problem with this movie, because it just seems a bit sad that Pete lost his family, and that he seems to act that his new family are better, and that he doesn't seem to miss his old family. But I was, however, impressed with the environment, film settings, and I was impressed with the visual effects. So there's the rating for the film, and thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment. Also, if you wonder which version I feel more comfortable watching, it's the 1977 version.